1:15.
And welcome everybody to the Huddle, KGUN9's weekly streaming sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr. You see we've got a new look here. The new look is us in the same room. It's not supposed to be not Pat Paris, but Pat, we've got a very good reason Pat's not here. We'll get to that in a second, but I'm joined today by Lindsey Dean, making her Huddle debut. Lindsey, KGUN9 sports reporter. Lindsey, welcome to the Huddle.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here. Exciting, but I know there's not the best reason why I'm here, but still.
Yeah, so we didn't do the Huddle last week. We do 40 of these a year in the 52 weeks a year, but we had the breaking news last week because the big national story news-wise is happening here in our backyard in Tucson. The unfortunate disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, Savannah Guthrie's mother. Pat, main anchor on KGUN, is at the house right now, I believe, along with a lot of other media reporting the latest developments, which today, is the video and pictures released by the FBI. So while terrifying to look at, a big break in the case.
Yeah, definitely good that there's some evidence that we're finally getting. I'm sure everyone's excited that we do have some more evidence, more context to hopefully bring Nancy home soon.
Okay, so we have the new look. We were going to bring me and Pat, or Lindsey, and Pat. Maybe they kick me out. We don't know how that's going to work, right?
Time will tell.
But that's right. In the same room, right? We thought we'd add a little dynamic. And of course, by the way, if you're watching live on our digital platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, what have you, you can type in the comments, and we're going to talk Arizona basketball and sports in a couple seconds, of course. So this is our new look for the Huddle. We're excited about it. We've been making a few changes this year. We've added the 2-minute warning. This is one of them, and we'll constantly tweak things, as they go. So excited about that. But first, before we talk Arizona basketball and the first loss of the season, I'm afraid, last night, a little bit about you. You are in your first year of sports reporting at KGUN, ASU grad. Yes. What teams do you pull for?
Well, I'm a Patriots fan. I am an ASU fan, but, being down in enemy territory now, I do love the Wildcats, I will say. So, yeah, it's been exciting. I played lacrosse in college, but now I'm focused more on football and basketball, so lucked out.
All right, so talk about the Wildcats, and boy, last night, first loss of the season. I thought maybe it was going to happen against BYU because that's such a tough environment. And then, the game, right before the game starts, we learned Darren Peterson, the star guard for Kansas, isn't going to play. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking it's kind of going to be like the situation at UConn early in the season when UConn didn't have one of its starters. Wildcats go into UConn and win against the third-ranked Huskies at the time. Mm-hmm. I thought, Lindsey, oh my goodness, everything is just lining up for this team this year. They're going to get to play Kansas without Darren Peterson, the starting guard, and sure enough, though, it doesn't go that way. So I want to hear your thoughts, but first we're going to put up our Huddle poll question, and that's for everybody to vote on. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about this, and then we're going to come back to it at the end of the show and take a look at how people voted. You can go to X and vote or our website. But our Huddle poll question is this: can Arizona basketball reclaim its mojo this Saturday against Texas Tech at home? And so, Lindsey, people can vote A, yes, easy win; B, yes, it'll be close; C, no, another tough one; or D, game day curse incoming, referring to college game day. What do you think?
So I think it's going to be a close one, and I do think that they're going to come out on top. From covering them this year, they are competitors. And I think that even though, obviously, coming off a loss, I think that that's just going to drive them. Tommy Lloyd said it last night. He feels like the season's just starting.
Interesting comment by him. Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah.
And I agree. I think this is kind of when they are getting battle tested in the beginning. Obviously, it's hard to go 23 straight wins, school history, but I think that all the hype around it, it's only going to fuel them. I think that they're very poised, and this is kind of going to be that one little boost that they need to take the win.
Yeah, I'll go two, yes, but it'll be close. JT Toppin, very good player for Texas Tech, and we'll take a look at the results when we come back to it later. I think most people will go A, B, or C. Mostly A or B. It's a pro-Arizona crowd, of course. So, but yeah. So I don't think we'll see C. I take that back. C is a no. Another tough one. So So no, I think you'll see people vote A and B. But I think you'll get a few votes for D. So it's kind of interesting. The poll's been up for a little bit. It's kind of interesting to see how people vote at the end. But yeah, listen, yeah. You didn't think they were going to win every single game, but then when they get to 20, but then after they win at BYU, I'm like, oh my goodness, maybe they really can run the table. But then last night, I felt like they almost lost to that arena as much as they lost to Kansas.
100%. I mean, I wasn't even there, and you could see all on the stands. It was probably the hardest, toughest place
so
to
loud.
play. So loud. I mean, even before the game, JB was saying last year that they played there, he couldn't even hear himself think. So I think
Jaden Bradley, Arizona point guard.
Jaden Bradley,
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's good, yeah.
But I definitely think
she's that close to the team. She's on an initial basis with some of these players, right?
But I think it definitely affected the players and could have affected the freshmen who had never played there. It's definitely a really, really hard environment to be in.
Yeah, I wonder how much it was, or with the freshmen, or did Koa Pete just have an off night? That was probably his worst game of the season, I think. I mean, Braden Burry scored 25 points. Karchenkov did well. He was 6 of 14 shooting, and even Aristotle off the bench contributed, right? He had a couple buckets. So I think it was just Koa Pete really having a tough night. Yes, it's a little interesting. Only 12 foul calls called against BYU. The traveling call was terrible. I don't know. I think the referee just forgot the rules for a minute. No, because not only did Tommy Lloyd go nuts, Braden Burries was like this.
Every single player
was like, well, he didn't call it when the guy jumped in the air. And at that point in the game, it was midway through the second half, and Arizona was up 64-61. And that was a bucket, but it caused a little chaos, and it got the crowd involved. And I know they say, oh, that's not involved in the final outcome or whatever, but every possession, counts so much.
Yeah, I definitely think that was a turning point, at least just for the mentality. You could see it on all their faces. They were like, what is this? And I think after that, they kind of lost a little bit of their flow. They weren't as connected as we've seen them all season. I think that was a big reason why.
But give Kansas credit, when Burry's got that 2+1 that made this Arizona have an 11-point lead. I thought that was going to be it, and Arizona was just going to overwhelm its opponents like it did in the second half of games this year. But give Kansas credit for coming back. I tell you what, though, I know Darren Peterson scores a ton of points, and he's really good, and he's a projected top draft pick. I would not take him if I'm an NBA team. I don't want a guy who misses that much time. If he's missing this much time in college, imagine how much time he's going to miss in the NBA.
It's true.
I'll take a hard pass on that. And then the other little controversy with that, Lindsey, is that actually, it was the first three questions asked to Tommy Lloyd in the Newser was, hey, should Darren Peterson have been on the injury report? Because he wasn't. And you didn't just find out 10 minutes before the game that this guy had the flu. He should have been probable. And so they asked Tommy Lloyd about that, and he didn't want to kind of get involved. But that's a thing, because had Kansas not covered the spread and lost, a lot of people would be talking about, hey, we didn't know Darren Peterson was hurt. And that should have been part of that should have been known information and part of the spread.
Yeah, I definitely think that was a huge part of it, and probably annoyed a lot of fans, I guess, more than Tommy Lloyd didn't seem too rattled by it, but it definitely was a big impact, and I agree with you.
Jason Barr, Lindsey Dean, it's the Huddle, KGUN 9 streaming talk show. We come to you each Tuesday at this time. A new look this week with us in the same room, and we're going to do some, we're doing some new things this year. Lindsey in for Pat Paris, who's on assignment. Pat, our main news anchor on KGUN 9, covering the Nancy Guthrie case, and everybody praying for some type of hopeful outcome, if not at least a resolution, in that case. So definitely, thinking about that as well. And here was my thought on the whole undefeated team situation, Lindsey, because we were talking about this in the newsroom yesterday. And I'm like, okay, if they're going to lose, because you don't want that much attention to you and that much pressure in the tournament, because the last three teams that went into the tournament undefeated were the Kentucky team in 2014-15. You had a Gonzaga team recently and a Wichita State team about 10 years ago. And neither of those three teams won the championship. So my take was, okay, if you don't want to go into the tournament, the NCAA tournament, unbeaten, what if you went in with a loss in the semifinals of the Big 12 tournament? You have a little bit more time to rest.
That'd be the ideal loss.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right? Because you would have a little bit more time to rest because you wouldn't be in the championship game. You get the loss out of the way. You would still be the number one overall seed, okay? And there you have your loss, and then you just, go and win 6 games in the tournament. That was kind of my take on it, of when the ideal loss, if they had to lose, would be.
I can see that. I agree with that. I think, in my maybe biased opinion, being a competitive athlete, I don't think that you need to lose. I think that...
Well, Tommy Lloyd said winning should never be a burden. That was his comment, right?
Yeah, and I agree. Winning should never be a burden. You shouldn't be like, oh, this would be the best time to lose. Obviously, there are logistical reasons why that would be beneficial, but I think just playing games like they played last night where they almost made the comeback and then they didn't in a really hard environment, I feel like they're getting the learning experience that they need. So whether they win,
coachable moments.
Yeah, whether they win or lose last night, I think like that was a huge learning experience. Obviously, when you lose, the mistakes seem a lot bigger. You focus on them more, so they could be bigger lessons. But I think if they keep playing like that and being in those tight spots, I think that's going to help them more than necessarily whether they win or lose them. Those are going to be more impactful.
I also think they're going to lose that #1 ranking because the people who vote have wanted to put Michigan in there all season long, right?
Yeah.
Even when Arizona was undefeated and Michigan was, I think, unbeaten, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though Arizona was ahead in the polls the whole season, they almost flip-flopped Arizona and Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay. But I didn't know how big a thing West Coast bias was till I moved out to the West Coast. Oh, really? Or East Coast bias. So unless Michigan loses, because Michigan only has one loss, they're going to flip-flop Michigan and Arizona's probably going to be ranked second. I don't see how you could move UConn ahead of Arizona after Arizona beat UConn, and I don't see how you can move Duke. I know how much they love Duke. I don't see how you can move Duke ahead of Arizona because Duke has 2 losses.
Yeah.
They lost to North Carolina. So I'm thinking Arizona, if they beat Texas Tech, right, will probably move to second, but they're going to lose that #1 ranking after 9 weeks. Longest stretch Arizona's ever been ranked #1.
Yeah, very impressive. I definitely think they are going to be bumped down, but I think that it was a good loss. I think anyone who watched the game, they know that's an impressive loss. It's not like they get...
Well, it's a quad 1 loss,
Yeah.
right? So it's a loss against one of the better teams in the country.
Yeah.
It's not like they lost to a mid-level Big 12 team on the road, right? Which would have been different. I'll tell you what, though, Lindsey, I'm a little concerned about Anthony Del Orso, right? So here's a guy who was a starter last year, and he's going to be moved in a reserve role, right? A reserve role this year, okay? And he comes into the preseason, and he is jacked. He looks great, muscular, everything. You've got a little manly facial hair going, right? And he looks so good. And he has a good game in Los Angeles, right? Where they played UCLA, and then just slowly, like as his muscle and his arms dwindled, right? So does his point production, and now he's not contributing as much. I really wish they could find a way to get him going, but it's on him to get open as well.
Yeah, I think obviously it's a very deep, talented team. I think he played really good on Saturday. Obviously, it was more of a blowout win, but you kind of saw him clicking. You saw him get into more of that flow, and I was really hoping that he'd be able to follow that up last night, but he really there's something missing, and I'm not sure, what it is, whether it's the position that he's in now coming off the bench, if that has really worn down on him. There's other guys
teams are defending him well, too, and they're preventing him from getting open for 3. He's got to do a better job of that. Anyway, we've got a segment. It's called our 2-minute warning. Okay, so our producer, Ryan, puts this together, and it's new this year, so we've only been doing it for about a month or so. I don't know what questions are coming, and we have to kind of react to them quickly, right? So it's called our 2-minute warning, and we're going to do that right now, and I assume it's going to come up right here on the screen, right? Okay, so this is our 2-minute warning. Okay, will Arizona lose again before the postseason? I'm going to say yes. Tough schedule. One of those games, and remember, they play at Houston, right? It's a game on our air on KGUN 9. That's a 50-50 shot at best. With the other games, I'm going to say yes. They're going to lose at least one more game. What say you?
I agree. I think that they're I'm hoping that they bounce back, and I think Saturday they might, but I think it's going to be hard for them to kind of find their footing for the rest of the season with such a hard schedule coming up. I think it's going to be tough.
Okay. Second down. That was first down. Second down. What was the best part of Super Bowl 60? The best part. Now, if somebody's asking what the best part of the Super Bowl was, either was a lot of good parts and you're having a difficult time picking one, or there weren't that many good parts, right? And now you're having to pick one. The most exciting play was probably the interception for return for a touchdown. I know it looked like a fumble, but it was ruled an interception return, for a touchdown by Seattle. But I don't have to me, it wasn't a great Super Bowl. Your thoughts on the best part?
Yeah, it was a little embarrassing as a Patriots fan. Not my favorite Super Bowl by us, but I will say the deep
Well, then the
ball
best part
from
was,
May.
when May
When
got,
I had a hope
Yeah.
that there would be a comeback, that was hands down my favorite part. Screaming and getting a little chirpy, but
You know, it's funny you say screaming. I don't know if my neighbor watches the Huddle, but I have neighbors, and they're she is one of the is from New England. In fact, their dog is named Brewster, off Brewster, Massachusetts. And I heard a little, yeah! I heard it coming when the Patriots got the touchdown. Okay, third down. Third down. Why did Arizona lose? Refs, crowd, shots not falling. Well, a little combination of the three. I know that's the easy answer. So if I had to pick the three, I'm going with the crowd. I'm going with the crowd. If I have to pick, one of the three. Which one do you pick?
I agree.
It's a good
I'd have
question,
to say
Ryan.
the crowd. I'd have to say the crowd. Obviously, real game. It's all three. That's how sports works. It's never just one downfall. But
And Kansas is going to come here, right? So they're going to have a chance
Yeah.
to avenge the loss.
yeah, and I think we're coming out on top for that one. I think the Wildcats have that one.
Okay, I like how you said were. Okay, fourth down. What is the best Winter Olympics sport to watch?
My personal
Go ahead,
favorite.
yeah.
I gotta say figure skating.
That gets the biggest ratings, I think. Yeah.
I'm not a very strong skater. Obviously, I love hockey, but I think figure skating, it's really the only time I watch it, and I think it's just so impressive what these people can do. Yeah.
Someone who I used to work with became the curling announcer for
wow.
NBC Olympics, right?
It's unique.
Yeah, figure skating, the skiing, and I know, unfortunately, Lindsey Crash might be in her career, but I'd put the skiing up there too. So, that's could be certainly a very subjective one. So that's our 2-minute warning. Hope we scored. We got it in, and so that's kind of one of our newer segments this year. So anyway, if anybody wants to make a comment, they can do so on our digital platforms, and if there is if it's clean, we'll be happy to read it or answer a question as well. All right. So here's my thought on the Super Bowl overall. I don't want to say the wrong team was in the Super Bowl, with the Patriots, but they didn't look like a Super Bowl team. I understand luck is a big part of it, and they played a Broncos team in the AFC Championship game that didn't have its starting quarterback, and then they got lucky with probably a bad decision by the coach when he went for it on fourth down, the Broncos coach, Sean Payton, and then they got lucky with the weather. So they got lucky there. They didn't have the toughest schedule in the world, but I just don't see they really have the playmakers, of a Super Bowl team. And the defense played well, but it's not as good as Seattle's defense. And number one defenses don't really lose Super Bowls. So this kind of almost went kind of according to plan, this Super Bowl. And that's kind of my take on it. And, this was supposed to be the year that Buffalo was going to be in the Super Bowl, right, with Josh Allen. And it just kind of felt like to me, New England wasn't a classic Super Bowl team.
I do agree with that. I mean, I've heard it all season being told to me we had the easiest path to the Super Bowl.
Didn't play a lot of star quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But they did play good defenses, right? In the playoffs, they definitely played good defenses. So you can't take that away from them. But they just didn't look like a team that it just took so long to get going.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like
should have been more creative on offense, I thought too.
Yeah, they were. I mean, it's hard when they had 7 sacks. Drake May kind of really.
But he's got to avoid that too. It's part of his job to get the ball out or rush. I know this, and for the team to call plays, like screens and draws to go against that. And the one play where they just collapsed on him and he ran forward, that was almost like their best play.
Yeah. I definitely think he's a young quarterback. It'll be a good learning experience, but I do think he wasn't tested enough throughout the season to really be able to shine in those moments. And on the big stage, that was very obvious.
And what's interesting is everybody's not saying, oh, no, don't worry, he'll be back next year or in the future, because, the case is Dan Marino, who was a star quarterback for the Miami Dolphins in the 80s and the 90s, and he got to the Super Bowl in his second year and he never got back. This is one of the top, 3 or 4 quarterbacks of all time. And so people aren't jumping to say, hey, oh, no, he'll be back in the future. You don't know.
Don't know. Hope so, but we'll see.
All right, so let's circle back now to our Huddle poll question, right? We had it earlier, and that is how Arizona is going to do against Texas Tech is, can they bounce back? And we'll see how this time we, instead of, us giving our opinion, which we can still do, we kind of get the results here. Okay. Can Arizona basketball reclaim its mojo this Saturday against Texas Tech? Yes, easy win. No, but it'll be close, which is what we thought and what we thought most people would think.
Yeah.
No, another tough one. Okay, and then 6% game day curse incoming. Is there a stat, Ryan, on a game day curse? I'm trying to think. When I think about the curse, I think about the Sports Illustrated curse. But I'm trying to remember if there's a game day curse. It was modern curse. Okay, yeah, we'll have to look up and see what that's about. But game day's been here, a few times before. I can't remember the last time they were here, but it's not new.
Yeah.
They're here, and they should be, for Arizona. And so I think they'll rebound against Texas Tech, and I also think they'll avenge the Kansas loss. But boy, it'll be tough to go to Houston. It'll be tough to run the table the rest of the way, and they don't have to. I do want them to win enough to be the number one seed in the West. I also kind of want them to go into the Big 12 tournament when the time comes, where they don't have to win or get to the finals to have that number one seed in the West. I kind of want it locked up before the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, I definitely think they could do it. I think especially this weekend being home, Tucson loves the Wildcats and the Wildcats love Tucson. So I think all the fans are going to try and compete with Kansas for that loud crowd.
Yeah, I think they'll try to return the favor and be like the Kansas crowd. I mean, no one's not going to be that loud, but when Kansas comes here in a couple of weeks, when they come back here. All right, this has been The Huddle, KGUN 9's weekly streaming sports talk show. Our new look, right, with us in the same room this week, and turns out to be a new look in more ways than one with Lindsey and for Pat. But Pat will probably be back next week, although who knows? It's just been crazy to see the eyes of the nation, really, as far as news on our in our neighborhood, as our news is called neighborhood news, and not far from here. What is it? 8 miles away or 9 miles away, only like 3 miles from where I live.
Yeah, very close.
And to have all this media here and everything is just kind of crazy. And I think to turn it around to sports, what we're all hoping is all the eyes will be on Tucson in March, but for basketball in a positive way.
Very true.
Okay. All right. For Lindsey Dean, I'm Jason Barr and Pat Paris. This has been The Huddle, KGUN 9's weekly streaming sports talk show, and we'll see you right back here next week at the same time.